When Lena Brooks dressed like a disaster for a blind date she never wanted, she thought the worst that could happen was an awkward conversation. She was wrong. The moment Victor Romano walked into that rundown cafe with armed men flanking him, her carefully invisible life shattered. What started as a plan to fail turned into a night where bullets flew, blood spilled, and a crime boss decided she belonged to him. Now she has to survive a world where saying no might cost her everything, and saying yes might cost her soul. If you want to see how far Lena's dangerous journey takes her, stay until the end. And don't forget to hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The cafe smelled like burnt coffee and broken dreams. Lena Brooks pushed through the grimy glass door at exactly 7:30, her stomach twisting with a mixture of relief and dread. Relief because she'd deliberately arrived late. Dread because she still had to go through with this ridiculous charade. The place was nearly empty, just a tired waitress wiping down tables and an old man nursing what had to be his fifth cup of the evening. Perfect. Absolutely perfect for what Lena had planned, the fastest, most painfully awkward blind date in history. She caught her reflection in the darkened window and almost smiled. Mission accomplished. She looked exactly like someone no sane man would want to pursue. The oversized gray sweater hung off her frame like a deflated parachute, sleeves dangling past her knuckles. She'd deliberately chosen her rattiest jeans, the ones with the frayed hem and the mysterious stain on the left thigh that wouldn't come out no matter how many times she washed them. Her hair, which could be glossy and thick when she actually tried, had been twisted into a messy knot that made her look like she'd just rolled out of bed after a 3-day flu. No makeup, not even lip balm. Dark circles under her eyes, real ones, earned from double shifts at the diner and staying up late with her landlord's eviction notices. She looked tired, broke, unapproachable, exactly as intended. "Can I help you?" The waitress looked up with the kind of exhausted indifference that came from years of minimum wage and maximum disappointment. "I'm meeting someone," Lena said quietly, sliding into the booth furthest from the door. "Or, I'm supposed to be." The waitress nodded and shuffled away without asking what she wanted to order. That was fine. Lena didn't plan on staying long enough to eat anything anyway. She pulled out her phone and checked the time. 7:32. Her well-meaning friend Jess had set up this disaster, insisting that Lena needed to get back out there, after her ex had cleaned out their joint bank account and disappeared with his personal trainer 6 months ago. "He's a friend of my cousin," Jess had gushed over cocktails last week. "Successful, handsome, total gentleman. Just give him one chance, Lena. One dinner. What's the worst that could happen?" Lena had wanted to provide a detailed list of worst-case scenarios, but Jess had already texted the guy Lena's number, and suddenly there was a date scheduled before she could protest. So here she was, dressed like a human deflection shield, ready to tank this evening before it could even begin. The plan was simple. Show up looking like disaster personified, make awkward small talk for exactly 15 minutes, then claim a sudden headache and flee. The guy would be relieved. She'd be free. Jess would eventually forgive her. Everyone wins. 7:35. Lena's phone buzzed. A text from Jess. "How's it going? Is he there yet?" Still waiting, Lena typed back. "Pretty sure he's not coming. Give him time. Traffic is crazy tonight." Lena sighed and set her phone face down on the scarred table. She gave herself until 7:45. If he hadn't shown by then, she'd leave with a clear conscience and tell Jess the guy had stood her up. Honestly, she was hoping for exactly that outcome. The bell above the cafe door chimed. Lena didn't look up immediately, probably just another customer looking for bad coffee and fluorescent lighting. But then she felt it, a shift in the air, a sudden tension that made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. The waitress stopped mid-wipe, her cloth frozen against a tabletop. The old man's coffee cup paused halfway to his lips. Lena's eyes lifted slowly, pulled by some instinct she didn't understand. 3 men stood in the doorway. No, not just men, predators in expensive suits. The 2 flanking the entrance were built like mountains compressed into human form. Broad shoulders, cold eyes, hands resting with practiced ease near their jacket pockets in a way that suggested weapons within easy reach. They didn't look at the menu board or search for a table. They scanned the room with military precision, cataloging exits and threats. But it was the man between them who made Lena's breath catch. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble by someone with a gift for dangerous beauty. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that looked like it could cut glass, and eyes so dark they appeared black in the cafe's harsh lighting. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Lena made in 3 months, tailored so perfectly it looked like a second skin. He didn't belong here. Not in this neighborhood, not in this cafe, not in any world Lena inhabited. Those dark eyes swept the room with casual authority and then, impossibly, locked onto hers. Lena's stomach dropped. No. No, no, no. This couldn't be her blind date. This man looked like he owned corporations and politicians, like he made decisions that changed lives with a single phone call. Men like him didn't go on blind dates with waitresses in rundown cafes. But he was walking toward her table. The two mountains in suits followed, taking positions near the entrance and by the counter, creating a perimeter that made the waitress back up nervously. Lena's heart hammered against her ribs. The man stopped beside her booth, and up close he was even more overwhelming. There was something predatory in his stillness, something that suggested violence held in perfect check. Lena Brooks? His voice was deep, smooth, with an edge of gravel that sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. She swallowed hard. That's me. May I sit? It was phrased as a question, but Lena had the distinct impression that refusing wasn't really an option. She nodded, not trusting her voice. He slid into the booth across from her with fluid grace, and suddenly the small table felt impossibly intimate. He studied her with an intensity that made her want to squirm, those dark eyes taking in every detail of her carefully constructed disaster. The corner of his mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. You wore your worst clothes, he said. Not a question. A statement of fact. Lena's cheeks burned. I don't know what you... The sweater is 3 sizes too large. The jeans have a coffee stain on the left thigh, 1 week old, judging by the oxidation pattern. Your hair's deliberately messy, and you're wearing no makeup despite the faint smell of makeup remover on your skin. He leaned back, completely relaxed. You came here planning to fail. Lena's mouth went dry. She'd been read like a book in 30 seconds flat. I think there's been a mistake, she managed. You're not... my friend set this up, but you can't possibly be Victor Romano. He extended his hand across the table. Lena stared at it. His hand was large, elegant, with calluses that suggested he knew how to use violence personally, not just delegate it. Slowly, she reached out and shook it. His grip was warm, firm, controlled. You don't seem like the blind date type, Lena said, pulling her hand back. I'm not. Victor's expression remained unreadable. Your friend Jessica is dating my associate's cousin. They thought this would be amusing. Amusing? Lena's voice came out flat. Right. You're angry. I'm confused and yes, a little angry. She glanced at the 2 human barricades positioned around the cafe. Do you always bring security to coffee dates? I bring security everywhere. Victor's tone suggested this was as normal as bringing a wallet. It's necessary in my line of work. What line of work is that? Import and export, international trade, various business interests. The answer was smooth, practiced, and told her absolutely nothing. Lena's instincts, honed by years of bad relationships and worse decisions, started screaming warnings. This man was dangerous. Everything about him, the suit, the guards, the way he watched her like he was solving an equation, said she should run. But there was something else too. Something in the way he looked at her, like she was genuinely interesting rather than just another pretty face. Of course, right now she wasn't even trying to be a pretty face, which made it even stranger. Look, Mr. Romano. Victor. Victor. The name felt strange on her tongue. I think we both know this was a setup neither of us wanted, so why don't we just... The cafe door burst open. 3 men stormed in, and these ones weren't wearing expensive suits. They wore leather jackets, cheap jeans, and expressions that promised violence. The one in front had a scar running from his temple to his jaw, and eyes that burned with barely contained rage. Romano! The scarred man's voice cracked through the cafe like a whip. The waitress dropped her cloth and bolted for the kitchen. The old man's coffee cup shattered on the floor. Victor didn't move, didn't even turn around. His eyes stayed locked on Lena's, and his voice remained perfectly calm. Stay still. Don't speak. Don't run. What? Lena. Her name was a command. Trust me. The scarred man was striding toward them, his two companions flanking him. Victor's guards had their hands inside their jackets now, but they didn't draw weapons. Not yet. You think you can show your face in neutral territory? Scarface spat. After what you did to Kozlov's shipment? Now Victor turned, slowly, with the kind of deliberate movement that suggested a coiled spring about to release. He stood, placing himself between Lena and the advancing men. This is a public establishment, Victor said, his voice dropping to something dark and dangerous. And you're interrupting my evening. Your evening? Scarface laughed, harsh and bitter. You cost us $2 million, and you're worried about your date? Victor's shoulders shifted almost imperceptibly. I'm going to give you one chance to walk away. Take it. Or what? You'll have your dogs tear us apart? Scarface gestured to the guards. There's 3 of us, 2 of them. The math doesn't work in your favor, Romano. You're forgetting to count me. Victor's voice was soft now, deadly soft. That's always a mistake. Everything happened in the space between heartbeats. Scarface reached for something in his jacket. Victor moved with liquid speed, grabbing the man's wrist and twisting it with surgical precision. Something cracked. Bone, definitely bone. And Scarface screamed. His weapon, a compact pistol, clattered to the floor. One of his companions lunged forward. Victor's elbow came up and back, connecting with the man's face in a spray of blood. The third man got his gun halfway out before one of Victor's guards slammed him against the counter, the weapon spinning away across the linoleum. It was over in less than 10 seconds. Scarface was on his knees, cradling his broken wrist. His companions were bleeding and dazed. Victor's suit wasn't even wrinkled. You came into neutral territory, Victor said, his voice conversational again, as if he'd just commented on the weather. You threatened me in front of a civilian, and you interrupted my evening. He crouched down to Scarface's level. Tell Kozlov that his shipment was compensation for the 3 men he killed in my warehouse. We're even. If he wants to dispute that, he knows where to find me. But if he sends anyone to interrupt my personal time again, I won't be merciful. He stood, adjusted his cuffs, and turned back to Lena. She was frozen in the booth, her heart threatening to explode out of her chest. Victor's expression softened almost imperceptibly. We should go. Go? Lena's voice came out as a squeak. There are men bleeding on the floor. They'll live. My men will ensure they get medical attention before they leave. He extended his hand toward her. Lena, we need to go now. I should call the police. The police won't come to this neighborhood for something like this. And if they did, you don't want to be here when they arrive. His hand remained steady, waiting. Please. It was the please that did it. That single word, coming from a man who clearly didn't use it often, who had just disabled 3 armed men with his bare hands. Lena took his hand. He pulled her from the booth with gentle firmness, keeping her behind him as they moved toward the door. His guards formed a protective circle, weapons now visible and pointed at the groaning men on the floor. The night air hit Lena's face like a slap. A black SUV with tinted windows idled at the curb, its engine purring like a panther. Get in, Victor said, opening the rear door. I don't even know you. Lena pulled back. Those men. What the hell was that? That was a complication. Victor's jaw tightened. And now it's become your problem as well as mine. My problem? I'm a waitress. I don't have anything to do with whatever business you were seen with me, in public, during what appeared to be a date. Victor's voice was grim. Kozlov's people are sloppy and vengeful. They'll assume you matter to me. They'll assume your leverage. The words hit Lena like ice water. Are you saying I'm in danger because I sat in a cafe with you for 5 minutes? Yes. The simple, brutal honesty of it stole her breath. This is insane, she whispered. This whole night is insane. I agree, but it's the reality we're dealing with. Victor's expression was unreadable. I can have my men watch your apartment building, or you can come with me to a secure location until this is resolved." Resolved? How do you resolve being seen with someone? By making it very clear to Kozlov that harming you would be catastrophically unwise. Victor's voice dropped. "I don't leave loose ends, Lena, and I don't let innocent people suffer for my conflicts." One of the guards leaned out from the cafe. "Boss, we need to move. Kozlov's people will have called for backup." Victor's attention never left Lena. "Your choice, but choose now." Lena's mind raced. Her apartment was a fourth-floor walk-up with locks that barely worked. She had no family in the city, no one to turn to, and now apparently she had Russian mobsters who might target her because she'd worn her worst sweater to a blind date. The universe had a sick sense of humor. "If I go with you," she said slowly, "what happens? You stay at my estate until I've neutralized the threat. You'll be safe, comfortable, and free to leave once the situation is handled. And if I don't?" Victor's jaw clenched. "Then I'll assign protection to you anyway, but you'll be more vulnerable. They could grab you off the street, from your apartment, from your work. I have resources, but I can't guard every moment of your life unless you're in a controlled environment." "A controlled environment?" Lena laughed, and it came out slightly hysterical. "You mean a prison?" "I mean a fortress." Victor's voice was firm. "There's a difference." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. "Lena." Her name was urgent now. "Please." She looked at this stranger, this dangerous, powerful stranger who had dismantled 3 armed men like they were made of paper. Every rational instinct told her to run, to refuse, to take her chances alone. But she thought about her flimsy apartment locks, her exposed walks to and from the diner, the fact that she had approximately $300 in her bank account and no resources to disappear. And she thought about the cold calculation in Scarface's eyes before Victor had broken his wrist. "One night," she said. "I'll stay one night while you handle this. Then I go home." Something flickered in Victor's expression. Relief? Satisfaction? It was gone before she could identify it. "Agreed," he said. She climbed into the SUV. Victor slid in beside her, and the door closed with a heavy, final thunk. The interior smelled like leather and expensive cologne. The seats were soft as butter, and the windows were so dark she could barely see outside. One of the guards got into the driver's seat. The other took the passenger side. Neither spoke. The vehicle pulled away from the curb with smooth acceleration, and Lena watched the rundown cafe disappear into the darkness behind them. "Where are we going?" she asked. "North. About 40 minutes outside the city." Victor pulled out his phone and began typing with swift efficiency. "My estate is secure. You'll have your own room, privacy, anything you need. What I need is to wake up from this nightmare." The corner of Victor's mouth twitched again, almost a smile. "I understand this is overwhelming." "Overwhelming?" Lena turned to face him. "I dressed like a slob to tank a blind date, and now I'm in an armored car with a man who just broke someone's wrist with one hand, heading to an estate because Russian mobsters might want to kidnap me. Overwhelming doesn't begin to cover it. You're handling it better than most would." "I'm not handling it. I'm dissociating." Lena pressed her hands against her thighs to stop them from shaking. "This isn't my life. My life is double shifts and ramen noodles and trying to figure out how to pay rent. This is a movie. A really violent, confusing movie." Victor's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, and typed something back before returning his attention to her. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. This wasn't supposed to happen." "What was supposed to happen? A nice dinner and polite conversation?" "Something like that." His voice was dry. "Though I suspect you would have made your excuses within 15 minutes regardless." "You're right. I would have." Lena sagged against the seat, exhaustion crashing over her. "Why did you even agree to this blind date? You're clearly not the type who needs help meeting women." "I owed someone a favor. They cashed it in by insisting I give this a chance." Victor's expression was unreadable. "I assumed it would be tedious but harmless." "Well, you were half right." They drove in silence for several minutes. The city lights gradually gave way to darker roads, fewer street lamps, more trees. Lena watched the world slide by and tried to process the surreal turn her evening had taken. "Can I ask you something?" she said finally. "Of course." "That thing you said about import and export. That was a lie, wasn't it?" Victor didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was careful. "It wasn't entirely a lie. I do deal in international trade, just not the legal kind that gets advertised in business journals." "So you're a criminal?" "I'm a businessman who operates outside conventional regulations." He turned to look at her. "Does that frighten you?" Lena considered this. She should be terrified. She should be screaming, demanding to be let out of the car. But something about Victor's directness, his refusal to sugarcoat or deceive, made her feel oddly grounded. "I think I'm too tired to be properly frightened," she admitted. "Ask me again tomorrow when I've slept and processed all of this." "Fair enough." The SUV turned off the main road onto a private drive lined with tall iron gates that swung open automatically. Lena sat up straighter, peering through the darkened windows. The estate wasn't a house. It was a compound. High walls surrounded a sprawling property dotted with strategic lighting. The main building was a modern mansion of glass and stone, all clean lines and subtle illumination. Smaller structures flanked it. Guest houses maybe, or security stations. As they pulled up the circular drive, Lena counted at least 6 guards patrolling the grounds. "This is where you live?" she breathed. "One of several properties. This is the most secure." The SUV stopped in front of the main entrance. Victor opened the door and stepped out, then offered his hand to help her down. Lena took it, her legs unsteady as she stood on the smooth pavement. The night air was cooler here, cleaner. She could hear crickets, the rustle of wind through manicured landscaping. The front door opened, and a woman in her 50s emerged. She had steel gray hair pulled back in a neat bun, and the kind of competent, no-nonsense air that suggested she ran this place like a 5-star hotel. "Mr. Romano." The woman's voice was crisp, professional. "Your guest room is prepared." "Thank you, Marie." Victor placed a hand on Lena's lower back, guiding her up the steps. "This is Lena Brooks. She'll be staying with us temporarily. Please ensure she has everything she needs." Marie's sharp eyes assessed Lena in one swift glance, taking in the oversized sweater and messy hair without judgment. "Of course. Miss Brooks, if you'll follow me, I'll show you to your room." Lena glanced at Victor. He nodded. "Get some rest. We'll talk more in the morning." She wanted to protest, to demand more answers, to figure out how she'd walked into a cafe and ended up in a crime lord's mansion. But exhaustion was pulling at her like a lead weight, and the events of the night were starting to crash down all at once. "Okay," she whispered. Marie led her through a foyer that looked like something from an architecture magazine, all marble floors and modern art, and a staircase that curved like a ribbon. They climbed to the second floor, walked down a hallway lined with closed doors, and finally stopped at one near the end. "This will be your room." Marie opened the door to reveal a space larger than Lena's entire apartment. A king-size bed dominated one wall, dressed in crisp white linens. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the grounds. A door on the left led to what appeared to be a private bathroom. "There are clothes in the closet that should fit you," Marie continued. "If you need anything adjusted, let me know. Breakfast is served at 8, but I can have something brought to your room if you prefer." Lena stepped inside, her feet sinking into plush carpet. It's too much." "Mr. Romano believes in comfort." Marie's expression softened slightly. "You've had a difficult evening, Miss Brooks. Try to rest. You're safe here." She left, closing the door quietly behind her. Lena stood in the center of the room, her mind blank with shock. She walked to the windows and looked out at the illuminated grounds, at the guards making their rounds, at the high walls that were either keeping danger out or keeping her in. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jess. "OMG, how did it go? Tell me everything." Lena stared at the message. What could she possibly say? That her blind date turned into an action movie? That she was now locked in a fortress with a man who might be a mob boss? "It was interesting," she typed back. "We'll call you tomorrow." She set the phone down and walked to the closet Marie had mentioned. Inside hung an array of clothes in various sizes, all expensive-looking and tasteful. She pulled out a soft cotton shirt and loose pants that looked like pajamas. The bathroom was spectacular, all white marble and gold fixtures and a shower that could fit 4 people. Lena stripped off her deliberately ugly outfit, turned the water as hot as she could stand, and stepped under the spray. Only then, with water pounding against her skin and steam rising around her, did she finally let herself shake. She'd sat across from a man who'd broken another man's wrist with casual ease. She'd been threatened by armed criminals. She'd agreed to stay in a stranger's home because the alternative was worse. Her carefully small, carefully safe life had exploded in the span of one evening. Lena pressed her hands against the marble wall and tried to breathe through the panic. This wasn't permanent. Victor had promised to resolve the situation. She'd stay 1 night, maybe 2, and then she'd go home and never speak to Jess about blind dates ever again. This was temporary. This was survivable. This was... A soft knock on the bedroom door made her jump. Lena quickly turned off the shower, dried herself, and pulled on the borrowed pajamas. She padded barefoot to the door and opened it a crack. Victor stood in the hallway, still in his suit, though he'd removed the jacket. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle. "I wanted to check on you," he said. "Make sure you have everything you need." "I'm fine." Lena's hand tightened on the door. "Just processing. Understandable." He looked like he wanted to say more, but instead he just nodded. "I'll be in the East Wing if you need anything. Marie knows how to reach me." He turned to leave. "Victor?" He stopped, looking back. "Why are you doing this?" Lena asked. "Really? You could have just put guards on my building. You didn't have to bring me here." Something shifted in his expression, something almost vulnerable, quickly masked. "Because I've spent my entire life dealing in violence and calculation and control. And tonight, for about 3 minutes before everything went to hell, I sat across from someone who looked at me like I was just a man. Not a threat, not an opportunity, just a man." He paused, his dark eyes holding hers. "I won't let you pay the price for that," he said quietly. Then he walked away down the hallway, leaving Lena standing in the doorway with her heart pounding for entirely different reasons than fear. She closed the door slowly and leaned against it. 1 night, she'd promised herself. 1 night in this surreal world of violence and luxury, and then she'd go home. But as Lena climbed into the impossibly soft bed and stared up at the ceiling, she couldn't shake the feeling that her old life, her safe, small, carefully controlled life, was already gone. And she had no idea who she'd become in this new one. Outside, the guards continued their rounds. The walls stood tall and imposing. And in the East Wing, a dangerous man who'd just admitted to seeing something real in her prepared for a war that had begun because of a blind date gone catastrophically wrong. Lena pulled the covers up to her chin and closed her eyes. Tomorrow, she told herself. Tomorrow she'd figure out what came next. But tonight, exhausted and overwhelmed and strangely, impossibly safe in the fortress of a criminal she barely knew, Lena Brooks finally let herself sleep. Morning light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, pulling Lena from a sleep so deep it felt like drowning in reverse. For a disoriented moment, she didn't recognize the room. The expensive sheets, the pristine white walls, the subtle scent of cedar, and something floral she couldn't name. Then memory crashed back. The cafe. The violence. Victor Romano's dark eyes watching her like she was a puzzle he intended to solve. Lena sat up slowly, her body protesting. She'd slept in a position so tense her shoulders ached. The clock on the nightstand read 8:15. She'd missed breakfast, not that she had any appetite. A soft knock preceded the door opening. Marie entered carrying a silver tray laden with coffee, fresh fruit, and pastries that looked too perfect to be real. "Good morning, Miss Brooks. I thought you might prefer breakfast in your room." Marie set the tray on a small table by the window. "Mr. Romano is in meetings, but asked me to let you know he'll speak with you at noon." "Meetings?" Lena's voice came out rough. "What kind of meetings does someone like him have?" Marie's expression remained professionally neutral. "The kind that require his full attention. I've laid out some clothes for you. Once you're dressed, you're welcome to explore the grounds, use the library, or remain here. You're a guest, not a prisoner." The careful distinction made Lena's stomach twist. A guest who can't leave. A guest who would be unwise to leave, Marie corrected gently. There's a difference. Mr. Romano takes protection seriously. He won't keep you here indefinitely, but he will keep you safe. She left before Lena could respond. Lena picked at the fruit, fresh strawberries that tasted like summer, and sipped coffee that was better than anything she'd ever made at the diner. Through the windows, she could see the estate in daylight. Manicured gardens stretched toward the high walls. A stone path wound through carefully maintained trees. 2 guards walked the perimeter, their presence both reassuring and unsettling. The clothes Marie had selected were simple but clearly expensive. Dark jeans that actually fit, a soft cream sweater, low boots. Lena dressed slowly, catching her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Without the deliberate disaster of last night's outfit, she looked like herself again. Tired eyes, sure, but recognizable. She pulled her hair into a ponytail and studied her face. 24 hours ago, her biggest worry had been making rent. Now she was living in a crime lord's fortress while he fought some kind of mob war she'd accidentally walked into. The universe really did have a sick sense of humor. Lena left her room and wandered the hallway. Closed doors lined both sides, their secrets locked away. She found the main staircase and descended to the first floor, her footsteps silent on marble. The house was beautiful in that cold, impersonal way of spaces designed by professionals rather than lived in by people. Modern art hung on walls. Sculptures occupied strategic corners. Everything was tasteful, expensive, and utterly devoid of warmth. She found the library by accident, pushing open a door and discovering floor-to-ceiling bookshelves packed with leather-bound volumes. A massive desk dominated one corner. Tall windows overlooked a different section of the grounds. "You're awake." Lena spun. Victor stood in the doorway, dressed more casually than last night. Dark pants, a black shirt open at the collar. He looked less like a crime boss and more like some dangerous fantasy from a cologne advertisement. "You said noon," Lena said, hating how her voice wavered slightly. "My meeting's finished early." Victor stepped into the library, closing the door behind him. "How did you sleep?" "Like someone who's being hunted by Russian mobsters." Lena crossed her arms. "How do you think I slept?" "Poorly, then." He moved to the desk, leaning against it with casual grace. "I've had my people working through the night. The situation is more complicated than I initially thought." Lena's stomach dropped. "Complicated how?" "Kozlov believes you're important to me. He's put out feelers in the underworld. He wants leverage, and he thinks you're it." Victor's jaw tightened. He won't move directly. Too obvious, too messy, but he'll wait for an opportunity. "So what are you saying? I can't go home? I can't go back to my life?" "Not immediately, not safely." Victor's dark eyes held hers. "I'm working to resolve this, but it will take time. Days. Maybe a week." "A week?" Lena's voice rose. "I have a job. I have bills. I can't just disappear for a week." "I've already handled your job. You're on paid leave, family emergency. Your landlord has been paid 3 months in advance. Your bills are covered." Victor's tone was matter-of-fact, like he'd simply checked items off a list. Lena stared at him. "You what? You can't just pay my bills." "I can and I did. You're in danger because of me. The least I can do is ensure your life doesn't fall apart while I fix it." "That's not..." Lena pressed her hands to her temples. "You don't get to just take over my life." "I'm not taking over your life. I'm protecting it." Victor pushed off the desk, taking a step toward her. "Lena, I understand this feels like an invasion, but Kozlov is dangerous. He's violent, unpredictable, and he holds grudges. If I let you go home, if I don't neutralize this threat completely, you'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder." "And what's your plan? Keep me locked up here forever?" "No. My plan is to make it abundantly clear to Kozlov and everyone else in my world that you are under my personal protection. That harming you, even threatening you, would bring consequences they can't survive." Victor's voice dropped. "And then I make sure those consequences are understood by every organization that might consider testing me." The casual way he discussed violence made Lena's skin prickle. "You're talking about killing people." "I'm talking about sending a message." Victor's expression was unreadable. "In my world, messages are often written in blood. I didn't make those rules, but I understand them." Lena turned away, walking to the windows. Outside, a guard checked the perimeter fence. Normal people didn't live like this. Normal people didn't have armed men patrolling their gardens. I don't belong here, she said quietly. No, Victor agreed. You don't, but you're here anyway, and I intend to keep you alive. She looked back at him. Why? You don't know me. I'm nobody. Just some waitress who happened to sit in a cafe at the wrong time. Victor was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. You looked at me last night like I was human. Do you have any idea how rare that is in my life? Everyone I meet sees either a threat or an opportunity. They calculate angles, measure their words, position themselves for advantage. But you… A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You just wanted to fail a blind date and go home. I did fail the blind date, Lena pointed out, spectacularly. Yes, you did. The smile became almost real. And yet, here we are. A soft knock interrupted them. Marie opened the door. Mr. Romano, Marcus needs to speak with you. It's urgent. Victor's expression shifted back to business. I'll be there in a moment. He waited until Marie left, then turned back to Lena. I have to handle this. Feel free to explore the grounds, stay within the walls. If you need anything, tell Marie. He started for the door, then paused. And Lena, I know this isn't the life you chose, but while you're here, you're safe. That's not a small thing. Then he was gone, leaving Lena alone in the library with books she had no interest in reading and questions she couldn't answer. She spent the morning walking the grounds. The estate was larger than it had seemed from her window. Acres of carefully maintained landscape, walking paths, even a fountain in the center courtyard. Guards nodded politely as she passed, but kept their distance. It was beautiful. It was luxurious. It was a prison with expensive amenities. Lena found herself in the garden, sitting on a stone bench near a bed of roses that probably cost more than her monthly salary. The absurdity of her situation hit her again. Yesterday she'd been worrying about tips and bus fare. Today she was trapped in a mansion while crime bosses plotted. You look lost. Lena looked up. A man stood on the path, younger than Victor, maybe early 30s, with sandy hair and an easy smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He wore casual clothes but carried himself like someone comfortable with violence. I am lost, Lena admitted, in pretty much every sense of the word. The man sat on the bench, keeping a respectful distance. I'm Marcus, head of Victor's security. You must be the infamous blind date. News travels fast. In this house? Always. Marcus stretched his legs out. For what it's worth, Victor's doing the right thing. Kozlov is nasty business. You don't want to be anywhere he can reach you. Everyone keeps saying that, but no one explains what makes him so dangerous. Marcus was quiet for a moment. 3 months ago, a rival tried to move into Kozlov's territory. Kozlov didn't just kill the guy. He killed the guy's entire family. Wife, kids, even the grandmother, burned their house down with them inside. That's the kind of man we're dealing with. Lena's blood ran cold. And Victor thinks this man wants to use me as leverage? Victor knows Kozlov's patterns. The man doesn't forget, and he doesn't forgive. Victor cost him money and reputation. He'll want payback. Marcus turned to look at her. You got caught in the crossfire. It's not fair, but it's reality. So what happens now? Now Victor does what he does best. He reminds everyone why crossing him is a fatal mistake. He'll strengthen alliances, call in favors, apply pressure. Within a week, maybe 2, Kozlov will either back down or end up in a position where he can't afford to come after you. And if he doesn't back down? Marcus's smile was cold. Then Kozlov won't be a problem anymore, one way or another. The casual way he discussed murder made Lena's stomach turn. This is insane. This whole world is insane. Yeah, it is. Marcus stood. But for what it's worth, you picked a good protector. Victor might be a lot of things, but he's loyal to the people he cares about. If he says he'll keep you safe, he will, no matter what it costs. He walked away, leaving Lena alone with roses and the weight of impossible choices. She didn't see Victor again until dinner. Marie came to her room at 6, informing her that Mr. Romano requested her presence for the evening meal. It was phrased as an invitation, but Lena suspected refusing wasn't really an option. The dining room was exactly what she'd expected. Long table, crystal chandelier, place settings that probably cost more than her car. Victor sat at the head, already waiting. He'd changed into a dark suit again, every inch the powerful businessman. "Thank you for joining me," he said as Lena entered. "Did I have a choice?" "Always," Victor gestured to the seat beside him. "But I hoped you'd choose to come anyway." Lena sat, and immediately staff appeared with the first course, some kind of soup that smelled amazing. She picked up the wrong spoon, caught herself, and tried the other one. Victor noticed. "You don't have to be nervous. I'm eating dinner with a crime boss in his mansion while mobsters plot my kidnapping. Nervous doesn't begin to cover it." "Fair point." Victor tasted his soup. "How was your day?" The mundane question in such bizarre circumstances almost made her laugh. "Surreal. I met Marcus. He told me about Kozlov and the family he murdered." Victor's jaw tightened. "Marcus should have let me explain that." "Should he? Or are you just upset I know exactly how dangerous this is?" "I wanted to tell you myself, in my own way." Victor set down his spoon. "Yes, Kozlov is dangerous. Yes, he's capable of horrific violence. But I've dealt with men like him before. I know how to neutralize threats." "By being more violent than they are?" "By being more strategic." Victor's dark eyes held hers. "Violence is a tool, Lena. Like any tool, it's most effective when applied precisely." The staff cleared the soup and brought the main course, perfectly cooked salmon with vegetables Lena couldn't name. She ate mechanically, her mind spinning. "Can I ask you something?" she said after several minutes of silence. "Of course." "How did you end up in this life? People don't just wake up one day and decide to become criminals." Victor was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he did, his voice was distant. "My father was in this world. He built an empire through violence and fear. When he died, I inherited it. The business, the enemies, the expectations. I was 22 years old and suddenly responsible for an organization that employed hundreds of people, most of them dangerous. You could have walked away. Could I?" Victor's smile was bitter. "The people who worked for my father expected me to lead. The rivals saw weakness to exploit. Walking away would have meant civil war. People would have died. My people, innocent people caught in the crossfire. So I did what I had to do. I learned to be harder, smarter, more ruthless than anyone who might challenge me. And now? Now I'm very good at being what this world requires." Victor took a sip of wine. "But that doesn't mean I enjoy it." Lena studied his face, the sharp angles, the controlled expression, the eyes that revealed nothing and everything at once. "You're lonely." He looked at her sharply. "What?" "You're lonely. All this power, all these people who work for you, and you're completely alone." Lena set down her fork. "That's why last night mattered to you. Not because of me specifically, but because for a few minutes someone treated you like a normal person." Victor's expression shifted. Surprise, then something raw and quickly hidden. "You're perceptive." "I work with people. Worked with people. At the diner you learn to read them, and you—" She gestured at him. "You're not as hard as you pretend to be. Don't mistake restraint for softness." Victor's voice dropped. "I've done things that would horrify you. I've made decisions that cost lives. I'm not a good man, Lena." "Maybe not, but you're not as bad as you think you are either." Lena met his gaze. "A truly bad man wouldn't care about collateral damage, wouldn't pay my bills or make sure I was comfortable, wouldn't give me a choice." "Don't romanticize me," Victor said quietly. "I'm keeping you safe because you're in danger because of me. That's obligation, not virtue." "If you say so." They finished dinner in silence, but it felt different now, less tense, more contemplative. When the staff cleared the plates, Victor stood and offered his hand. "Walk with me?" Lena hesitated, then took his hand. It was warm, calloused, steady. He led her through glass doors onto a terrace overlooking the grounds. The sun had set, and lights illuminated the gardens like stars brought to earth. It was beautiful in a way that made her chest ache. "I spoke with my contacts today," Victor said, standing at the terrace railing. "Kozlov is being more aggressive than I expected. He's making noise, calling in favors, trying to pressure my allies." "What does that mean?" It means this won't be resolved as quickly as I'd hoped. Victor turned to face her. I need you to stay here longer, at least another week, possibly 2. Lena's heart sank. 2 weeks? I'm sorry. I know that's not what you want to hear. What I want is my life back. Lena's voice cracked. My small, boring, safe life where the biggest crisis was deciding between rent and groceries. I can't give you that. Not yet. Victor stepped closer. But I can promise you this. I will end this. Kozlov will either back down or be removed from the equation entirely. You will go home. You will be safe. And until then, I'm just supposed to wait? Trapped here while you play gangster politics? You're not trapped. Yes, I am. Lena's frustration boiled over. You paid my rent. You called my job. You're making decisions about my life without asking me. You say I have choices, but every choice leads to the same place, here, in your control. Victor's jaw tightened. Would you rather I put you in a safe house with strangers, guards who don't know you, who'd see you as just another assignment? I'd rather you treat me like an adult capable of making my own decisions. Fine. Victor's voice went cold. What would you decide? Go home and hope Kozlov doesn't grab you off the street? Run and hope you can disappear before he finds you? Tell me, Lena, what's your brilliant plan? She wanted to have an answer, wanted to throw some perfect solution in his face, but she had nothing, no resources, no connections, no way to fight men who murdered families as casually as she poured coffee. I hate this, she whispered. I know. Victor's expression softened. I hate it too, but hating it doesn't change reality. They stood in silence, the night air cool against Lena's skin. She felt tears building and refused to let them fall. She wouldn't cry, not here, not in front of him. I'll make you a deal, Victor said quietly. What kind of deal? 1 week. Give me 1 week of your trust. Let me protect you without fighting me every step. If at the end of that week you still want to leave, if you'd rather take your chances alone, I'll let you go. No arguments, no forcing you to stay. His dark eyes searched hers. But you have to actually give me a chance, not just endure this. Engage with it. Engage with being held captive. Engage with being my guest. Explore the estate. Use the library. Ask me questions. Stop treating this like a prison and start treating it like a temporary shelter. Victor paused. Let me show you that I'm not your enemy. Lena wanted to refuse, wanted to hold on to her anger and fear because they felt safer than whatever he was offering. But she was so tired of fighting, so exhausted from pretending she had any control. 1 week, she said finally, but I want honesty. No half-truths, no careful phrasing. If I ask you something, you tell me the truth. Agreed. And I want independence. I'm not going to sit around waiting for updates. I need something to do, some way to feel useful. Victor considered this. Marie mentioned the estate library needs cataloging. The previous owner collected rare books but kept terrible records. If you're interested, you could organize them. It was such a normal task in such an abnormal situation that Lena almost laughed. You want me to be your librarian? I want you to have purpose while you're here. If cataloging books gives you that, then yes. Lena looked out at the illuminated gardens, at the guards making their rounds, at the high walls that were both protection and prison. She thought about her tiny apartment with its broken heater and leaky faucet. She thought about double shifts and customers who never tipped. She thought about the life she'd been living, small, safe, suffocating in its predictability. This was dangerous. This was insane. This was everything she should run from. But maybe, just for 1 week, she could stop running and start understanding. Okay, she said, 1 week, your way. Something shifted in Victor's expression. Relief, satisfaction, something warmer she couldn't name. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You might regret this deal when I start asking uncomfortable questions. I look forward to it. The corner of his mouth lifted, almost a real smile. You're not like anyone I've ever met, Lena Brooks. Is that a good thing? I'm still deciding. But his tone suggested he'd already made up his mind. They stood together on the terrace as night deepened around them, Two people from impossible worlds trying to navigate circumstances neither had chosen. And despite everything, the danger, the violence, the fundamental wrongness of the situation, Lena felt something dangerous blooming in her chest. Not trust exactly. Not yet. But possibility. The kind that could save her or destroy her, and she had no idea which. The library became Lena's sanctuary over the next 3 days. She'd wake early, have breakfast in her room, then disappear into the rows of leather-bound volumes until Marie gently reminded her that humans needed to eat lunch. The cataloging project was more extensive than Victor had suggested. Thousands of books in a dozen languages, many of them first editions worth small fortunes. It gave her something to focus on besides the armed men patrolling outside and the dangerous reality of why she was here. Victor kept his distance during the days. She'd catch glimpses of him through windows, standing in the courtyard talking on his phone with that lethal stillness he possessed, or walking the grounds with Marcus discussing things she couldn't hear. But every evening at 7, he'd appear at the library door and invite her to dinner. It became a ritual. Dinner, conversation, then walks through the estate as darkness fell. He answered her questions with the brutal honesty he'd promised, holding nothing back even when the truth was ugly. "How many people have you killed?" she'd asked on the second night. "Personally, 17. His voice had been flat, factual. "Through orders I've given? More than I care to count." She should have been horrified, part of her was, but another part recognized the weariness in his eyes when he answered, the weight he carried. "Do you regret it?" "Some of them. The ones who were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Collateral damage is a reality in my world, but that doesn't make it acceptable." Victor had looked at her then. "I've done monstrous things to protect what's mine. That's not justification, just explanation." Now it was the 4th morning of her week-long agreement, and Lena was elbow-deep in a box of 19th century literature when Marie entered the library looking more agitated than Lena had ever seen her. "Miss Brooks, I need you to come with me, immediately." Lena stood, her heart already racing. "What's wrong?" "Mr. Romano requires your presence. Please, quickly." They moved through the house at a pace just short of running. Marie led her to a wing Lena hadn't explored before, down a hallway lined with closed doors that looked heavier than normal, more secure. She stopped at one and knocked twice. "Enter." Victor's voice was clipped, commanding. Marie opened the door and ushered Lena inside. The room was clearly Victor's office, all dark wood and leather, with monitors mounted on one wall showing security feeds from around the estate. Victor stood behind a massive desk, Marcus beside him, both their expressions grim. 3 other men Lena didn't recognize occupied chairs along the wall, all of them radiating the same dangerous competence as Victor's guards. "What's going on?" Lena asked. Victor's jaw was tight. "Kozlov made a move. 2 hours ago, his people tried to grab your friend Jessica." The floor seemed to drop out from under Lena. "What? Is she? She's fine. My people were watching her as a precaution. They intervened before Kozlov's men could get her into a vehicle." Victor's dark eyes were hard. "But this changes things." "How? Why would he go after Jess?" "Because she's your connection to me. She set up the blind date. In Kozlov's mind, that makes her leverage." Victor moved around the desk. "He's escalating faster than I anticipated. This wasn't a probe or a message. This was a serious attempt." Marcus spoke up. "We interrogated one of Kozlov's men. He confirmed they were planning to use your friend to draw you out. The theory was you'd come to help her, and then they'd have you both." Lena's legs felt weak. She gripped the edge of the desk. "Jess doesn't know anything. She was trying to help me meet someone. She doesn't deserve to be caught up in this. No one deserves what Kozlov does to people." Victor's voice softened slightly. "That's why I've had her under protection since the first night. I anticipated this possibility." "You've been watching her without telling me?" "I was protecting her without worrying you unnecessarily, but now—" Victor glanced at Marcus. "Now we need to make a harder choice." "What kind of choice?" Lena's voice came out sharper than intended. Victor was quiet for a moment, his expression unreadable. When he spoke, each word was carefully measured. "Kozlov won't stop. He's made this personal, which means he'll keep escalating until either I give him what he wants or I remove him from the equation entirely. I've been trying to handle this diplomatically, through pressure and negotiations. But diplomacy has failed. So what are you saying? I'm saying tonight I'm going to end this. Permanently. Victor's eyes held hers. And I'm telling you now because you deserve to know what's about to happen in your name. The weight of his words settled over the room like a physical thing. Lena understood what he was really saying. He was going to kill Kozlov. Maybe not personally, but through his orders. And people would die because she'd sat in a cafe at the wrong time. There has to be another way, she whispered. There isn't. Not anymore. Victor stepped closer. Kozlov crossed a line going after Jessica. If I don't respond with overwhelming force, it signals weakness. Other organizations will think they can target my interests, my people. This has to end tonight, and it has to end decisively. One of the men along the wall spoke, his accent thick and Eastern European. The target will be at his club on 5th Street. Wednesday nights he always conducts business there. Security will be heavy, but we've identified the vulnerabilities. Marcus nodded. We go in fast, surgical. Kozlov and his top lieutenants. Anyone else who gets in the way. We leave no room for retaliation. They were planning a massacre, and they were doing it right in front of her like it was a business meeting. Lena felt bile rise in her throat. I need air, she managed. Victor gestured to the others. Give us the room. They filed out silently, Marcus casting one concerned glance at Lena before closing the door behind him. The moment they were alone, Victor spoke. I know this is difficult to hear. Difficult? Lena's laugh came out brittle. You're planning to murder people, and you're telling me it's happening because of me. That's a little beyond difficult. It's happening because of Kozlov's choices, not yours. Victor's voice was firm. He could have walked away. He could have accepted that we're even. Instead, he escalated to targeting innocent people. That's on him, not you. But people are going to die. Yes. They are. Victor didn't flinch from the truth. Bad people who've made their choice to live in this world, who understand the risks. This isn't collateral damage, Lena. This is removing a threat that won't stop until he's destroyed everything in his path. Lena turned away, walking to the windows that overlooked the courtyard. Outside, guards maintained their patrol patterns. Normal people were at work, having coffee, worrying about normal things. She wanted so badly to be one of them again. You promised me honesty, she said without turning around. So be honest now. Is this really about protecting me and Jess? Or is this about your reputation? Your power? The silence stretched long enough that she finally looked back. Victor's expression was complex. Anger, respect, something raw underneath both. Both, he admitted. If I let Kozlov get away with this, you and Jessica remain targets. But you're right. This is also about maintaining my position. In my world, appearing weak gets you killed. Every rival, every ambitious lieutenant starts calculating whether they can take what's yours. The violence multiplies. He paused. So yes, this serves multiple purposes. Does that make it wrong? I don't know. Lena's voice was small. I don't know anything anymore. Victor crossed the room until he stood close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. I'm not going to apologize for being what I am. I'm not going to pretend this is noble or righteous. But I'm going to protect you, whatever that requires. And if that makes me a monster in your eyes, I can live with that. You're not a monster. The words surprised her even as she spoke them. Monsters don't care about collateral damage. Monsters don't offer choices. You're just... She searched for the right words. You're someone trying to survive in an impossible world using the only tools you have. Something shifted in Victor's expression. You continue to surprise me. Yeah, well, I'm surprising myself too. Self. Lena rubbed her face. A week ago, I would have run screaming from someone like you. Now I'm standing here trying to understand why you do what you do. And? Do you understand? I'm starting to. She met his eyes. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. But I understand it. Victor reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he brushed a strand of hair from her face with unexpected gentleness. I need you to stay here tonight. Inside the house, away from windows. This will be handled quickly, but there's always risk of retaliation. Will you be here? No. I'll be leading the operation. At her sharp look, he continued, I don't ask my people to do anything I won't do myself. If blood is being spilled in my name, I'm there. That's insane. You could be killed. I've been doing this a long time. I know how to minimize risk. His hand lingered near her face. But I appreciate your concern. Don't. Lena stepped back. Don't make this intimate. Don't act like we're something we're not. And what aren't we? Victor's voice was quiet, dangerous in a different way than before. I don't know what we are, but we're definitely not. She gestured helplessly. This is Stockholm Syndrome or trauma bonding or something equally messed up. I can't think straight here. You're thinking more clearly than you realize. Victor's dark eyes held hers. You see me, Lena. Not the reputation, not the fear. You see the man underneath all of this. That's rare. That's... He stopped himself. I should go. We move in 3 hours. He walked to the door, then paused with his hand on the handle. There's a safe room in the basement. Marie knows where it is. If anything happens, if you hear gunfire or alarms, go there immediately. Promise me. Victor, promise me. The intensity in his voice made her nod. I promise. He left without another word, and Lena sank into the chair behind his desk, her hands shaking. The next hours crawled by like years. Marie brought her lunch, which she couldn't eat. She tried to focus on cataloging books but couldn't concentrate. Finally, as evening shadows lengthened across the estate, she gave up pretending to be productive and went to her room. Through the window, she watched guards mobilize. 3 black SUVs pulled up to the main entrance. Men in tactical gear emerged from the house, checking weapons with professional efficiency. Victor appeared last, dressed in black from head to toe, moving with lethal purpose. He looked up at her window, their eyes meeting across the distance. Even from here, she could see the intensity in his gaze. Then he climbed into the lead vehicle, and the convoy pulled away. Lena pressed her forehead against the cool glass and tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. Marie knocked and entered without waiting for permission. Miss Brooks, Mr. Romano asked me to stay with you this evening. I'm fine. You don't need to babysit me. Nevertheless, Marie settled into a chair with knitting needles and yarn. I've worked for Mr. Romano for 8 years. I've seen him go on operations before. He's always careful, always prepared. How many times has he almost died? Marie's hands paused in their knitting. Twice that I know of, but he learned from those experiences. He doesn't make the same mistake twice. They sat in silence, Marie knitting while Lena watched the empty driveway. Time moved strangely, simultaneously too fast and too slow. Her mind conjured horrible scenarios. Victor shot, bleeding. Victor captured. Victor killed. Why did she care so much? She barely knew him. He was a criminal, a killer, someone who disrupted her entire life. But he'd also protected her, fed her, answered her questions with brutal honesty, looked at her like she mattered, like she was more than just an inconvenience to be managed. He cares about you, Marie said quietly. Lena turned from the window. What? Mr. Romano. He cares about you. I can see it in how he talks to you, looks at you. In 8 years, I've never seen him bring someone into his personal space like this. He's just protecting me because I'm in danger because of him. If that were true, you'd be in a safe house with guards. You'd be a problem to solve, not a guest to engage with. Marie's needles clicked steadily. He has dinner with you every night. He walks with you. He answers your questions. That's not obligation, Miss Brooks. That's choice. Lena's chest tightened. It doesn't matter. Even if you're right, this isn't sustainable. I don't belong in his world. Perhaps. Or perhaps you belong exactly where you are. Marie smiled gently. Life has a way of putting us where we need to be, even when it makes no sense. Before Lena could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from Jess. Call me ASAP. Something crazy happened. Lena's stomach dropped. She dialed immediately. Jess picked up on the first ring. Lena, oh my God, you're not going to believe this. These men tried to grab me off the street today, like actually kidnap me. But then these other guys showed up and stopped them and said they worked for Victor Romano. What the hell is going on? Jess, slow down. Are you okay? I'm fine. Freaked out, but fine. These security guys brought me to some hotel and said I needed to stay here for a few days. They said you were involved somehow? Jess's voice rose. Lena, what is happening? Who is Victor Romano? And why are people trying to kidnap me? Lena closed her eyes. It's complicated. Complicated? Men with guns tried to throw me in a van. I know, I'm sorry. I never meant for you to get caught up in this. Lena struggled to find words that wouldn't sound insane. Remember that blind date you set up with your cousin's friend? Yeah, the one with Victor. You said it was interesting and you'd call me back, but you never did. And I've been worried. Victor isn't who you thought he was. How did she explain this? He's involved in some dangerous business. The date went wrong, and now some very bad people think I matter to him. They tried to use you to get to me. Silence. Then, are you serious right now? Completely serious. Lena, where are you? Are you safe? I'm at Victor's estate. He's protecting me until he can resolve the situation. His estate? Like a mansion? Jess's voice climbed an octave. You're living with a mob boss in his mansion? It's not like that. What is it like then? Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds exactly like that. Lena sank onto the bed. I don't know what it's like, Jess. It's the most confusing, terrifying, surreal thing that's ever happened to me. But Victor is handling it. Tonight, actually. He's out there right now dealing with the people who came after you. Dealing with them how? Lena didn't answer. Oh God, Lena, you need to get out of there. Come to the hotel, we'll figure something else out. I can't. Not yet. Not until this is over. Lena's voice was firmer than she felt. Victor is trying to protect both of us. I have to trust that he knows what he's doing. You're trusting a criminal? I'm trusting the man who's kept me safe when everyone else wants to use me as leverage. Lena paused. I know how this sounds. I know how crazy this is. But right now, Victor Romano is the only thing standing between us and something much worse. Jess was quiet for a long moment. You like him? What? No, I barely know him. You're defending him. You're staying in his house voluntarily. Lena, I've known you for 3 years. You don't trust anyone easily, but you're trusting him. Because I don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Jess's voice softened. I'm not judging you. I'm just... Be careful, okay? Men like that are dangerous in more ways than one. I know. Lena heard voices in the hallway outside her room, urgent, moving fast. Jess, I have to go. Stay at the hotel. Don't leave. Promise me. I promise. But Lena, call me tomorrow. Let me know you're okay. I will. Lena ended the call just as Marie stood abruptly, her knitting falling to the floor. The older woman moved to the door, opening it a crack. Lena heard Marcus's voice, sharp and commanding. Want all exits secured. No one in or out until Victor returns. Marie. Lena stood. What's happening? Marie turned, her face pale. I'm not certain. Stay here. Lock the door after me. No, tell me what... But Marie was already gone, pulling the door shut behind her. Lena heard the lock click from the outside. She was trapped, actually locked in her room. Lena ran to the window. The grounds were suddenly alive with movement. Guards running toward the perimeter, more vehicles arriving. Something had gone wrong. Something had happened. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but some instinct made her press accept. Miss Brooks. The voice was male, accented, cold. My name is Alexei Kozlov. I believe you've been staying with a friend of mine. Lena's blood turned to ice. How did you get this number? I get everything I want, eventually. Right now, I want you to listen very carefully. She heard the smile in his voice. Your protector made a mistake tonight. He came to my club thinking he could end me, but I was ready, and now I have something he values. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the 8 men who walked into my territory thinking they were hunters. They're prey now, including Victor Romano. Kozlov's voice was silk over razors. I'm going to give you a choice, Miss Brooks. You have 2 hours to present yourself at an address I'm going to text you. Come alone, unarmed, cooperative. Do this, and I'll let Mr. Romano and his men live. You're lying. Victor wouldn't have been captured. Wouldn't he? You don't know him as well as you think. Kozlov laughed. He walked into my trap because he was angry, emotional. Men make mistakes when they let feelings cloud judgment, and his feelings for you made him sloppy. I don't believe you. Then don't come. Let me kill him slowly while you wait in your locked room. It's your choice, Miss Brooks, but choose quickly. I'm not a patient man. The line went dead. Lena stood frozen, her mind racing. It could be a lie. Kozlov could be trying to lure her out, knowing Victor's people would protect the estate. But what if it was true? What if Victor was captured, hurt, dying because he'd gone after Kozlov to protect her? Her phone buzzed. A text from the unknown number. An address on the east side in the warehouse district. And a photo. The photo showed Victor on his knees, blood on his face, hands zip-tied behind his back. Two men with guns flanked him. His eyes were defiant but pain-glazed. It could be photoshopped. Could be fake. But what if it wasn't? Lena tried the door, locked solid. She ran to the window. Second floor, but there was a trellis along the side of the building, thick with vines. If she could reach it, this was insane. She should call Marcus, tell him about Kozlov's call. Let Victor's people handle it. But if she did that, and Kozlov killed Victor because she didn't show up, could she live with that? She thought about the man who'd answered her questions honestly, even when the truth was ugly, who'd paid her bills without asking permission, who'd looked at her like she was real, valuable, worth protecting. She thought about owing someone her life, and she thought about the choice Victor had given her, 1 week of trust. Lena grabbed her phone, slipped on shoes, and climbed out the window onto the trellis. It creaked under her weight but held. She descended quickly, dropping the last few feet to land in the garden. Alarms would trigger any second. Guards would converge. She had maybe 2 minutes before this became impossible. She ran for the wall, finding a section where a tree grew close enough to climb. Her hands scraped against bark as she pulled herself up, adrenaline making her stronger than she'd ever been. She reached the top of the wall, looked down at the drop on the other side, and jumped. Pain shot through her ankle when she landed, but she forced herself to run. Through the woods surrounding the estate, toward the distant lights of the main road. Behind her, she heard shouting, alarms blaring. She didn't stop, couldn't stop. She'd made her choice. Now she had to follow it through to whatever end was waiting, even if that end was her own death in a warehouse with a monster who destroyed families. Lena's lungs burned as she reached the main road, her twisted ankle screaming with every step. A taxi was dropping off a passenger at a gas station across the street. Pure luck or fate, she couldn't tell which. She limped across the pavement, waving frantically. "Miss, you okay?" The driver was an older man with kind eyes that widened at her disheveled appearance. "I need to get to the East Warehouse District, fast, please." Lena climbed into the back seat before he could refuse. "That's not a safe area this time of night." "I know, I still need to go." She pulled out the crumpled bills from her pocket, maybe $40 total, everything she'd had in her jeans when Victor's world had swallowed her whole. "This is all I have, please." The driver looked at her in the rearview mirror, taking in her torn clothes, her bleeding palms from the climb, the desperation in her eyes. Whatever he saw made him nod and pull away from the curb. The city lights blurred past. Lena's phone buzzed constantly. Calls from Marie, from numbers she didn't recognize. Probably Marcus and Victor's security team realizing she was gone. She silenced it, her hands shaking. What was she doing? This was suicide. Kozlov had murdered entire families. He would kill her the moment she walked through whatever door waited at that address. But the image of Victor on his knees, blood on his face, kept replaying in her mind. If there was even a chance it was real, even a possibility that her surrender could save him. "Here's the district." The driver's voice was uncertain. "Which building?" Lena checked the address Kozlov had sent. 2 blocks down, the one with the red door. The warehouse loomed ahead, a hulking structure of corrugated metal and broken windows. Light spilled from cracks in the walls. 2 men stood outside the red door, both armed, both watching the street with predatory alertness. "Miss, I really don't think—" "Thank you for the ride." Lena handed him all her cash and opened the door. "Wait." The driver grabbed a business card from his dashboard. "My name's Eddie. If you need help getting out of wherever you're going, you call me. Free ride, anywhere in the city." Lena took the card, her throat tight. "Thank you." She stepped out into the cold night air. The taxi lingered for a moment, then pulled away reluctantly. The sound of its engine faded, leaving only the distant hum of traffic and her own thundering heartbeat. The guards saw her approaching and exchanged glances. One spoke into a radio, his eyes never leaving her. Lena stopped 10 feet away, raising her hands. "I'm Lena Brooks. Kozlov called me. I'm here." The first guard moved forward and patted her down with professional efficiency. He found her phone and crushed it under his boot. "Inside. Now!" They flanked her, gripping her arms hard enough to bruise, and dragged her through the red door. The warehouse interior was vast and dimly lit. Shipping containers lined the walls. In the center, an open space had been cleared and lit with harsh portable lights. And there, exactly as the photo had shown, knelt Victor. Lena's heart stopped. He was alive, but battered. Blood from a cut above his eyebrow had dried on his face. His hands were zip-tied behind his back, and 2 guards stood with guns trained on him. 5 of his men were lined up against a container wall, Marcus among them, his face swollen from a beating. Victor's head snapped up when the guards hauled her into the light. His eyes widened, then filled with something between fury and despair. "Lena, no! Quiet!" A man stepped from the shadows, and Lena recognized him immediately from the scarred face, the one from the cafe, his wrist now in a cast. But beside him stood someone else, someone who commanded the room with casual authority despite being shorter and older than everyone present. Alexei Kozlov was in his 50s, gray at the temples, wearing an expensive suit that looked ridiculous in a warehouse. But his eyes were chips of ice, and when he smiled at Lena, she understood why people feared him. "Miss Brooks. How punctual." Kozlov gestured, and the guards forced her to her knees beside Victor. "I appreciate a woman who understands the value of keeping her word." "Let them go." Lena's voice shook, but held. "That was the deal. I'm here. Release them." Kozlov laughed. "Did I say I would release them? I said I would let them live temporarily. There's a difference." Victor strained against his restraints. "Kozlov, this is between us. Let her walk out of here." "No, I don't think so." Kozlov circled them slowly, like a shark. "You see, Mr. Romano, you cost me money. You cost me reputation. But worse, you made me look weak in front of my organization. That requires a response." "Then respond to me. Kill me if that's what you need. But she's innocent. Is she?" Kozlov stopped in front of Lena. "She came here voluntarily. She left your fortress, evaded your guards, risked her life. That's not the behavior of someone innocent. That's the behavior of someone invested." He crouched to her level, his face inches from hers. Lena smelled expensive cologne, and underneath it, something metallic, blood, maybe, or gun oil. "Tell me, Miss Brooks, what is he to you? A protector? A lover? Something more interesting?" "He's someone who doesn't deserve to die because of me." Lena met his icy gaze. "Whatever you want from this situation, I'm offering myself in exchange. Let Victor and his men leave. Keep me." "Lena, don't—" Victor's voice was raw. Kozlov's smile widened. How noble, how touching, how utterly pointless. He stood, brushing imaginary dirt from his knees. "You still don't understand how this works. I don't want exchanges. I don't want negotiations. I want Victor Romano to watch someone he cares about suffer because he dared to touch what was mine." He nodded to Scarface, who drew a pistol and pressed it against Lena's temple. The metal was cold. Final. Victor went absolutely still, every muscle locked. When he spoke, his voice was different than Lena had ever heard it. Not controlled, not calculating, desperate. "Alexei, please, name your price. Anything. Everything I have. Just let her go." "Your empire?" Kozlov's eyebrows rose. "Your territory, your operations, your men? You'd give me everything for this girl you've known less than a week?" "Yes." The single word hung in the air like a confession. Kozlov studied Victor for a long moment, then threw back his head and laughed. "You really have gone soft, Victor. Your father would be ashamed." He gestured to Scarface. "Kill her." Everything happened in the space between heartbeats. The warehouse doors exploded inward with a deafening crash. Smoke grenades detonated, filling the space with thick gray clouds. Gunfire erupted from multiple directions, controlled, precise bursts. Scarface's gun moved from Lena's temple toward the chaos. Victor surged upward despite his bound hands, slamming his shoulder into the man's knee with devastating force. Something cracked and Scarface went down screaming. Lena dove for cover behind a metal crate as bullets whined overhead. Through the smoke, she saw shapes moving, tactical gear, weapons, coordinated assault. Not Kozlov's people. Someone else. A figure materialized beside her. A woman in black tactical gear with short blonde hair and eyes that missed nothing. Lena Brooks? Lena nodded, unable to speak. Stay down. We're extracting you. The woman spoke into her radio. Package located. Moving to secondary position. Victor. Lena tried to see through the smoke. Already handled. Move. The woman gripped Lena's arm and pulled her toward the wall, using the containers as cover. Behind them, the firefight intensified. Lena heard Kozlov shouting orders, heard return fire from his men, heard the controlled chaos of a professional extraction team doing what they did best. They reached a side door Lena hadn't noticed before. 2 more tactical operators flanked it, covering their exit. The blonde woman pushed Lena through into a narrow alley where 3 black SUVs waited. Get her in vehicle 2, the woman commanded. Strong hands lifted Lena into the middle SUV. The interior smelled like gun oil and leather. A medic was already reaching for her, checking her over with practiced efficiency. I'm fine, Lena protested. Where's Victor? What's happening in there? Extraction team is bringing him out now. The medic dabbed antiseptic on her scraped palms. You're safe, Miss Brooks. Just breathe. But Lena couldn't breathe. Not until she saw Victor alive. Not until she knew this insane gamble hadn't gotten him killed. Gunfire from inside the warehouse had decreased to sporadic shots. Shouts echoed. Then the main doors burst open again and figures emerged from the smoke. Victor walked out under his own power, freed from the zip ties, flanked by operators. His face was grim, blood still marking his features, but he was alive. Marcus and the others followed, battered but moving. Victor's eyes scanned the vehicles and locked onto Lena's SUV. He changed direction immediately, crossing the distance with ground-eating strides. He yanked open the door and pulled her out of the vehicle, his hands framing her face, checking her over with the same intensity the medic had, but infinitely more personal. Are you hurt? Did they touch you? His voice was harsh, strained. I'm fine. Victor, I'm fine. Lena's hands came up to grip his wrists. What happened? Who are these people? Back up. I had a secondary team watching from distance in case things went wrong. His jaw clenched. Things went very wrong. Because of me. I walked right into his trap. Because you're brave and selfless and completely insane. Victor's thumbs brushed her cheekbones. You climbed out a second-story window and crossed the city to trade yourself for me. Do you have any idea how terrified I was when they told me you were gone? I saw the photo. You were captured, hurt. The photo was real. We walked into an ambush. Kozlov had 3 times the men we expected. Victor's expression was raw. He was going to execute us all until he realized he could use us as bait. He knew you'd come. How did he know that? Because I would have done the same thing if our positions were reversed. Victor pulled her closer, his forehead nearly touching hers. Don't ever do something like that again. Don't ever risk yourself for me. Then don't risk yourself for me, Lena shot back. You went after Kozlov tonight because of me and Jess. This whole thing started because you decided I was worth protecting. You are worth protecting. So are you. They stared at each other, both breathing hard, the truth of what had almost happened settling over them like ashes. The blonde tactical woman approached. Sir, we need to move. Kozlov escaped through the back. Police will be here in minutes. Victor's expression shifted back to business, but his hands didn't leave Lena's face. Casualties? 2 of Kozlov's men dead, 5 wounded and detained. Our side, minor injuries only. Jackson took a graze, but he's mobile. The woman's eyes flicked to Lena. The girl did good, walked right into a death trap to save your life. I know. Victor's voice was soft. Get everyone back to the estate. Full medical workups, and double the perimeter security. Already done. But sir, Kozlov got away.
He'll retaliate. Let him try. Victor finally released Lena, though one hand found hers and held tight. He just proved he can't hold me, and now he knows I have resources he didn't account for.
The balance has shifted. They loaded into the SUVs. Lena pressed against Victor's side in the back seat. His arm went around her automatically, holding her close as the convoy pulled away from the warehouse. In the distance, sirens wailed. "Your backup team," Lena said quietly. "You didn't tell me about them." "I didn't tell anyone except my most trusted people." Operational security. Victor's thumb traced circles on her shoulder absently. "I learned a long time ago to always have contingencies." "So you were never really in danger?" "I was in significant danger until they got into position. Kozlov's ambush was well planned. If you hadn't shown up when you did..." He stopped himself. "Your presence changed his focus, gave my team the opening they needed." Lena processed this. "So I accidentally helped?" "You terrified me and accidentally helped. Both can be true." Victor's voice held a note of dark humor. "Though I'm still angry you left the estate." "I'm angry you got captured in the first place." "Fair enough." They rode in silence for a few minutes. Lena's adrenaline was crashing, leaving her shaky and exhausted. She sagged against Victor's side, and he adjusted to support her weight more comfortably. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now Kozlov knows he can't win through direct confrontation. He'll either cut his losses and back off, or he'll try something more subtle. Either way, I'll be ready." Victor's voice was grim. "But this isn't over. Not yet." "How long until it is?" "I don't know. Days, weeks. Depends on how smart Kozlov is about his survival." "And me?" "What happens to me?" Victor was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his words were careful. "That depends on what you want to happen." Lena lifted her head to look at him. In the dim interior light of the SUV, his face was all sharp angles and shadows. The blood had dried on his temple. He looked exhausted, dangerous, and somehow vulnerable all at once. "I don't know what I want," she admitted. "A week ago I wanted my quiet life back. I wanted to be invisible and safe and alone. But now I'm not sure that life fits anymore." Lena's voice was barely a whisper. "I climbed out a window and crossed the city because the thought of you dying was worse than the thought of dying myself. That's not something someone does for a stranger." "No," Victor agreed. "It's not." "So what are we?" "Really?" Victor's dark eyes searched hers. "I think we're two people who found something unexpected in impossible circumstances. I think you scare me more than any enemy I've ever faced, and I think..." He paused. "I think you're the first real thing that's happened to me in 10 years. The words hung between them, honest and raw. "This is crazy," Lena said. "Completely." "It can't possibly work." "Probably not." "But..." Victor's hand came up to cup her face. "But sometimes the impossible thing is the only thing worth fighting for." He kissed her then, and it wasn't gentle. It was desperate and fierce and tasted like blood and smoke and survival. Lena kissed him back with equal intensity, her hands fisting in his shirt, all the fear and adrenaline and confusion of the past week pouring into that single point of contact. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the SUV was pulling through the estate gates. "We need to talk," Victor said. "Really talk. About what this means, what you want, what I can offer that isn't just protection and danger." "Okay." Lena's lips felt swollen, her heart still racing. "But first you need medical attention. That cut needs stitches." "It's fine." "It's not fine. You've got a head wound and probably cracked ribs from the way you're breathing. Stop being stubborn and let someone patch you up." Victor's mouth curved into something almost like a real smile. "Bossy." "Someone has to be, since you clearly have no sense of self-preservation." They pulled up to the main house where Marie waited with a medical team. The older woman's expression was a mixture of relief and exasperation. "Miss Brooks, when you locked door opened from the outside..." She stopped herself, clearly too angry to continue coherently. "Medics, both of you, now." The next hour was a blur of antiseptic and stitches and x-rays brought in on portable machines. Lena's ankle was wrapped,
badly sprained but not broken. Her hands were bandaged. Victor's head wound required 12 stitches, and he had 2 cracked ribs that made him wince when the medic wrapped them. Marcus appeared during the examination, his face swollen but his eyes sharp. "Boss, we need to debrief." "Later." Victor's tone left no room for argument. "But Kozlov—" "Later, Marcus." Victor waited until the medic finished taping his ribs, then stood carefully. "Everyone is to stand down, get medical attention, and rest. We'll debrief in the morning."
Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Victor's expression stopped him. He nodded and left. Victor turned to Lena. "Can you walk?" "With the ankle wrapped, yes. Painfully, but yes." He held out his hand. She took it. They walked through the quiet house, up the stairs, down the hallway toward her room, but when they reached her door, Victor didn't let go. "I don't want to be alone tonight," he said quietly. "I almost lost you in that warehouse. I keep seeing Kozlov's man with the gun to your head, and His jaw clenched. "I need to know you're safe, that you're real." Lena understood completely. She'd spent the last hour fighting the urge to reach out and touch him, to confirm he was alive and whole. "Your room or mine?" she asked. Relief flickered across his face. "Mine. It's more secure." He led her to the east wing, to a suite she'd never seen before. It was larger than her guest room, more personal. Books lined one wall. A desk held papers and a laptop. The bed was massive, dressed in dark sheets. This was where Victor lived, not just where he stayed. And he was inviting her into it. "I'll sleep on the couch," he said, gesturing to a leather sofa by the windows. "Don't be ridiculous. We're both adults, and that bed is huge. We can share without—" Lena stopped, heat rising in her cheeks. "I just mean—" "I know what you mean." Victor's expression softened. "And you're right, but I wanted to offer." They prepared for bed in awkward silence. Victor disappeared into his bathroom and emerged in sleep pants and a t-shirt that did nothing to hide the bandages around his ribs. Lena used the guest bathroom down the hall, borrowing another pair of Marie's borrowed pajamas. When she returned, Victor was already in bed, sitting propped against pillows, staring at nothing. Lena climbed in on the other side, keeping a careful distance between them. The sheets were soft, expensive. The room smelled like cedar and something distinctly Victor. "Thank you," he said into the darkness, "for coming after me, even though it was reckless and dangerous and could have gotten you killed. Thank you for having a backup team, even though you didn't tell me and I spent the whole ride to the warehouse convinced I was going to die." A huff of what might have been laughter. "We make quite a pair." Terrible survival instincts on both sides. Completely terrible. They lay in silence for several minutes. Lena's body was exhausted, but her mind wouldn't stop racing. She kept seeing that gun against her temple, kept feeling the certainty of imminent death. "Victor?" "Yes?" "I'm scared." The confession hung in the air. Then the bed shifted and Victor's arm came around her, pulling her against his side. Lena went willingly, pressing her face against his shoulder. "I'm scared too," he admitted. "I've faced death more times than I can count. But tonight, watching him put that gun to your head, I've never been that terrified. What if Kozlov comes back? What if this never ends? Then we deal with it together." Victor's hand stroked her hair gently. "I won't let him hurt you, Lena. Whatever it takes, however long it requires. You're under my protection, and I don't fail the people I protect." "Is that what I am? Someone you protect?" "No." His voice was rough. "You're someone I—" He stopped, searching for words. "You're someone I can't imagine not being in my life anymore. That's different. That's more." Lena lifted her head to look at him. In the dim light from the windows, his features were shadowed, but his eyes were clear. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "I don't know how to care about someone who lives like you do, someone who might not come home from operations, someone whose enemies will always see me as leverage." I don't know either," Victor admitted. "I've never let anyone close enough to care about. It's always been too dangerous, too complicated. But with you—" His thumb traced her cheekbone. "With you, I can't seem to help myself. This is insane. We've established that. It probably won't work." Most likely not. But Victor kissed her again, softer this time, but no less intense. Lena melted into it, her hands sliding up to tangle in his hair. He made a sound low in his throat and pulled her closer, careful of his ribs but unwilling to let her go. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Lena rested her forehead against his. 1 week, she said. That was our deal. It's been 4 days. So it has. I want to extend the deal. Victor went very still. For how long? I don't know. Long enough to figure out if this thing between us is real or just trauma bonding and Stockholm syndrome. And if it's real, then we figure out what comes next, together. Lena pulled back to meet his eyes. But I need honesty, Victor. Complete honesty. About your business, your life, the dangers. I can't do this blind. Agreed. No more secrets. Victor's expression was solemn. But Lena, I need you to understand what you're agreeing to. My life is complicated and violent. There will always be threats, always be people who want to use you against me. If we do this, if we try to build something real, it won't be easy. Nothing worth having ever is. You're sure? Lena thought about her old life, the tiny apartment, the double shifts, the careful invisibility. She thought about safety and smallness and the slow suffocation of existing rather than living. Then she thought about climbing out windows and facing armed men and discovering she was capable of more courage than she'd ever imagined. I'm not sure of anything, she said honestly, but I'm sure that I want to try. With you. Whatever that means. Victor kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. Then we'll try. Together. They settled back into the bed, Lena tucked against Victor's side, his arm around her, both of them battered and exhausted and alive. Outside, guards patrolled the grounds. Somewhere in the city, Kozlov plotted his next move. The world remained dangerous, complicated, impossible. But in this moment, wrapped in expensive sheets in a crime lord's bedroom, Lena Brooks felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope and possibility, and the terrifying, exhilarating sense that her life was finally, truly beginning. Sunlight woke Lena, streaming through windows she didn't recognize. For a disorienting moment, panic flared. Then she felt the warm weight of Victor's arm across her waist, heard his steady breathing beside her, and remembered. The warehouse, the gun, the kiss, the choice to stay. She turned her head carefully. Victor was still asleep, his face relaxed in a way she'd never seen while he was conscious. The stitches above his eyebrows stood out starkly against his skin. Even in sleep, there was something untamed about him, something that suggested violence held in careful check. Lena should have been terrified. Instead, she felt oddly safe. His eyes opened, immediately alert despite the abrupt awakening. Old habits, probably. When he saw her watching him, some of the tension left his shoulders. "Morning," he said, his voice rough with sleep. "Morning. How do you feel?" "Like I got beaten by Kozlov's men and then wrapped in medieval torture devices." Victor shifted, wincing as his ribs protested. "But alive, which is the important part. Your backup team saved us." "They did their job, which was to ensure I came home." His hand found hers under the covers, fingers interlacing. "I'm sorry you had to go through that. The fear, the gun, all of it. I'm sorry you walked into an ambush because of me. Not because of you, because of Kozlov's choices." Victor's thumb traced patterns on her palm. "But we need to talk about what happens next." A soft knock interrupted them. Marie's voice came through the door. "Mr. Romano, I apologize for the intrusion, but Marcus says it's urgent." Victor sighed and called out, "Give me 10 minutes." They dressed quickly, Lena in yesterday's clothes, Victor moving stiffly as he pulled on fresh ones. When they emerged, Marcus was waiting in the hallway, his face still showing the aftermath of the fight, but his eyes sharp. "Kozlov made contact," Marcus said without preamble. "He wants to negotiate." Victor's expression went cold. "When?" "This morning. Neutral location, both parties unarmed. He's proposing the Meridian Hotel, public space, plenty of witnesses." Marcus paused. "He's scared, boss. Last night proved he can't take you by force. Now he wants to deal." Or it's another trap. Possible, but I don't think so. Our intelligence says he lost 15 men last night, including 2 of his best lieutenants. His organization is fractured. This feels like a man trying to salvage what he can. Victor was quiet for a long moment, his hand unconsciously moving to the bandages around his ribs. Set it up, 2 hours from now. I want a full security team outside the hotel and surveillance inside. If this goes wrong, I want overwhelming response ready. Already arranged. Marcus's eyes flicked to Lena. Should Miss Brooks... I'm coming, Lena said before Victor could answer. If this is about me, I deserve to be there. Absolutely not. Miss Victor's tone was firm. Kozlov will use your presence against us. This is a business negotiation, and you're not leverage he gets to exploit. I'm not asking permission, Lena crossed her arms. You promised me honesty and partnership. That means I get to be part of the decisions that affect my life. Victor looked like he wanted to argue, but something in her expression stopped him. You stay behind me. You don't speak unless I give you clearance. And if anything feels wrong, you leave immediately with the security team, non-negotiable. Deal. Marcus cleared his throat. I'll brief the team. We leave in 90 minutes. The Meridian Hotel was the kind of place where wealthy people conducted business over expensive coffee and power lunches, all marble and glass and the subtle scent of money. Victor's security team spread throughout the lobby, trying to look inconspicuous and failing completely. Kozlov was already seated in a private corner booth when they arrived, flanked by 2 men who were clearly bodyguards. He looked older in daylight, the lines around his eyes deeper, his expression harder. But when he saw Victor approaching with Lena beside him, something flickered across his face that might have been respect. Romano, and the girl who walked into my warehouse unarmed. Kozlov gestured to the seats across from him. You both have more courage than sense. Or we understand the value of calculated risks. Victor sat, positioning himself between Kozlov and Lena. You wanted to talk. Talk. Kozlov poured coffee from a silver pot, the mundane action surreal given the circumstances. Last night was expensive for both of us. I lost good men. You exposed resources I didn't know you had. We could continue this war, bleed each other dry, or we could acknowledge that neither of us wins through continued conflict. You started this war, Victor said coldly. You came into neutral territory and threatened me during a private evening. You tried to kidnap an innocent woman. You ambushed my team. Don't pretend this is mutual aggression. Your shipment interference cost me $2 million. Your men killed 3 of mine in my warehouse. We were even until you made it personal. Victor's voice dropped. Now you want to negotiate because you realized I'm willing to burn your entire organization to ash rather than let you touch what's mine. Kozlov's eyes shifted to Lena. The girl means that much to you? What she means to me isn't your concern. What should concern you is that I'm offering you one chance to walk away from this intact. And what are your terms? Victor leaned back, his posture deceptively relaxed. You cease all operations targeting me, my organization, and anyone connected to me. You pull your people out of the disputed territories. You make it clear to every organization you work with that this conflict is resolved, and I emerged the clear victor. You want me to surrender publicly? Kozlov's jaw tightened. That's unacceptable. Then we continue the war, and I systematically dismantle everything you've built over the next 6 months. Victor's tone was conversational, like he was discussing the weather. I have the resources, the connections, and the motivation. How long do you think your people will stay loyal when I start cutting off your revenue streams? You'd risk that much destruction over a woman you've known a week? I'd risk it over the principle that you don't get to threaten what's mine and walk away unpunished. Victor paused. But I'm also a practical man. I don't want the disruption of a prolonged war any more than you do, so I'm offering you a different option. Kozlov's eyes narrowed. I'm listening. Public truce. You acknowledge our territories are separate and agreed upon. You pay reparations for the 3 men you killed, standard rate, delivered to their families anonymously. And you guarantee the safety of Lena Brooks and Jessica Chen for as long as they live. And in exchange, I don't destroy you. I accept your truce publicly, which allows you to save face with your organization. We both move forward without the cost of continued conflict. Lena watched Kozlov process this. She could see the calculation in his eyes, the weighing of pride against survival. Finally, he spoke. The reparations are acceptable. The territorial agreement is acceptable. But I want something in return beyond just survival. What? Access to your shipping routes through the eastern ports. Not control, just access. 20% of my cargo gets priority passage alongside yours. Victor considered this. 15%, and you pay standard fees like everyone else. 18%, and I pay half fees for the first year. 16%, half fees for 6 months, then full standard rates. Kozlov smiled thinly. You drive a hard bargain. I learned from the best. Victor extended his hand across the table. Do we have an agreement? For a long moment, Kozlov just looked at the offered hand. Then, with visible reluctance, he shook it. We have an agreement. I'll have my lawyers draw up the formal documents. As will I. Victor stood, helping Lena to her feet. And Kozlov, if you ever threaten her again, if you even look at her wrong, no agreement in the world will stop what I do to you. Understood. Kozlov's eyes met Lena's. You chose an interesting protector, Miss Brooks. Most men in our world would have used you as a bargaining chip. He went to war for you instead. He's not most men, Lena said quietly. Something like amusement crossed Kozlov's face. No, he certainly isn't. They left the hotel in silence, Victor's hand firm on Lena's lower back as they navigated through security and into the waiting SUV. Once inside with the doors closed and the vehicle moving, Victor let out a long breath. That went better than expected, Marcus said from the front seat. He was cornered and knew it. Victor's jaw was still tight. But he'll honor the agreement. Kozlov is practical above all else. War with us would cost him more than his pride can afford. Lena turned to look at Victor. Did you just end a gang war over coffee? Technically, I ended it last night when my team extracted us from his warehouse. This was just formalizing the terms. Victor met her eyes. Are you okay? I'm not sure. I just watched you negotiate with the man who had a gun to my head 12 hours ago. It's surreal. Welcome to my world, Victor said dryly, where yesterday's enemy becomes today's business partner because continued conflict is inefficient. And he'll really just stop? Just like that? He'll stop because the alternative is worse. Kozlov built his empire through calculation, not passion. He knows when to cut his losses. Victor's hand found hers again. Which means you're safe now, really safe. You can go home, go back to your life. The words should have filled her with relief. Instead, Lena felt her chest tighten. What if I don't want to go back to my old life? Victor went very still. What are you saying? I'm saying I've spent the last week living in your world, seeing how you operate, who you are beneath the reputation, and Lena struggled to find the right words. I don't want to go back to being invisible, to working double shifts and worrying about rent and living small because it's safe. Lena, my world is dangerous. I know, I've seen it firsthand, but it's also real in a way my old life never was. You're real. What we have, whatever this is, it's real. She squeezed his hand. I'm not saying I want to be involved in your business. I'm saying I want to be involved with you, if you'll have me. Marcus coughed from the front seat. I'm going to pretend I can't hear this conversation. Victor ignored him, his full attention on Lena. You understand what you're proposing. If you stay with me, if we make this official, you become a permanent part of my life. That means security, restrictions, always looking over your shoulder. It means being connected to someone whose enemies will always see you as potential leverage. I know. It means giving up the normal life you could have, the safe, boring existence where the biggest worry is paying bills. I know that too. And you still want this? Lena thought about the last week. The terror, yes, but also the feeling of being truly seen for the first time in years. The conversations over dinner, the way Victor looked at her like she was valuable, important, worth protecting. The realization that she was capable of more courage than she'd ever imagined. I want this, she said firmly. I want you, dangerous world and all. Victor's expression transformed, surprise giving way to something raw and vulnerable. I don't know how to do this.
How to be in a relationship. I've spent so long keeping everyone at arm's length. Then we'll figure it out together. Make mistakes together. Learn together. You make it sound simple. It probably won't be simple at all, but it'll be real. Lena smiled. And real is what you said you wanted, remember? Victor pulled her close, mindful of his ribs, and kissed her with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with the violence he was capable of. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I don't deserve you, he murmured. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. Marcus cleared his throat again. We're approaching the estate.
Should I arrange for Miss Brooks' belongings to be moved to the main suite? Victor looked at Lena, the question clear in his eyes. She nodded. Yes, Victor told Marcus. And Marcus, cancel the surveillance on Jessica Chen. Make sure she knows she's safe and has my personal number if she ever needs help. Already done, boss. The next weeks passed in a blur of adjustment and discovery. Lena moved into Victor's suite officially, her few belongings from her apartment looking sparse in the massive space until Marie helped her acquire new things. She returned to cataloging the library, but now as a genuine project rather than just something to pass time. Victor taught her about his business, the legitimate operations that formed the public face of his empire, and the darker dealings that funded it. He held nothing back, answering every question with the brutal honesty he'd promised. Some of it disturbed her. Some of it she disagreed with vehemently, and she told him so. You can't justify money laundering by saying the clients would just go elsewhere, she argued one evening over dinner. I'm not justifying it, I'm explaining the reality of the economics involved. Victor's eyes held amusement despite the serious topic. You're allowed to disapprove. I do disapprove. Strongly. Good. I need someone who'll challenge me, not just agree with everything I say. They developed routines. Morning coffee on the terrace, evening walks through the gardens, dinners where they debated ethics and philosophy and what it meant to live with moral compromise. Victor was surprisingly well-read, surprisingly thoughtful about the weight of his choices. I don't pretend I'm a good man, he told her one night as they lay in bed. But I try to minimize the harm I cause. I protect my people. I keep my word. I don't target innocents. That has to count for something. It does, Lena agreed. You're not as bad as you think you are. And you're far too forgiving. Maybe. Or maybe I just see you clearly. Jessica visited 3 weeks after the warehouse incident, escorted to the estate by security that made her eyes widen. She and Lena sat in the garden while Victor gave them privacy, though guards remained discreetly visible. So this is real, Jess said, looking around at the manicured grounds. You're actually living with a crime boss. I'm living with Victor, Lena corrected, who happens to be involved in criminal enterprises, yes, but he's also kind and protective and honest in ways most legitimate men I've dated never were. Lena, this is insane. I know, but it's my choice to make. Jess studied her friend's face. You're happy. Actually happy. I haven't seen you like this in years. I am happy, terrified sometimes, challenged constantly, but happy. Then I support you. Completely. Jess grabbed her hand. But if he ever hurts you, crime boss or not, I'll find a way to make him regret it. Lena laughed. Deal. 6 months after that disastrous blind date, Lena stood in the library surrounded by perfectly organized shelves, the cataloging project finally complete. Victor found her there, a bottle of wine in hand. Celebrating? She asked. The Kozlov agreement was finalized today. Signed, notarized, distributed to every major organization in the region. Victor poured 2 glasses. It's officially over. How do you feel? Relieved, satisfied, ready to focus on other things. He handed her a glass, then pulled an envelope from his jacket. I have something for you. Lena opened it to find legal documents, a deed to her old apartment building. What is this? I bought your building, the entire thing. Victor's expression was carefully neutral. Your apartment is legally yours now, free and clear. So is Jessica's. I've also established a trust that covers building maintenance and renovations indefinitely. Victor, this is too much. Let me finish. The apartment is yours because you need to know you always have a choice. You can stay here with me, or you can go back to your old life, or you can do something completely different. but I never want you to feel trapped by financial dependence. Lena set down the documents with shaking hands. You're giving me freedom. I'm giving you what you deserve. Agency, options, the ability to choose this life rather than be forced into it. She kissed him then, deep and grateful and fierce. I choose this. I choose you. You're sure? Completely sure. Victor smiled, a real smile, the kind he only showed her in private moments. Good. Because I have one more thing. He pulled out a small box. Not a ring box, Lena noted with relief. Too soon for that. Instead, when he opened it, she saw a delicate necklace with a pendant, a small key made of platinum. To remind you, Victor said softly, that you always have the key to leave, and that you choose to stay. Lena let him fasten it around her neck, the weight of it settling against her skin like a promise. 1 year after the blind date that changed everything, Lena Brooks stood in the estate library, her library now, officially, and looked out at the gardens where guards still patrolled and walls still stood high. She'd learned to shoot under Marcus's patient instruction. She'd learned the names and faces of Victor's organization. She'd learned which questions to ask and which silences to honor. She'd carved out a life that balanced the person she'd been with the person she was becoming. Victor had changed too. He smiled more, laughed occasionally, consulted her on decisions that affected them both. He'd begun the slow process of legitimizing parts of his business empire, moving money into legal ventures that could eventually replace the criminal operations entirely. It'll take years, he told her, maybe decades, but I want to build something that won't put you at risk, something we can both be proud of. They weren't perfect. They fought about his continued involvement in dangerous operations. They disagreed about how much security was necessary. They struggled to balance his world with her need for normalcy. But they were real, honest, partners in the truest sense. Jessica had become a regular visitor, no longer afraid of the estate or the guards. Marie treated Lena like a daughter. Marcus had grudgingly admitted she was good for Victor, which from him was high praise. And Lena had discovered something she'd never expected, that safety wasn't the same as being alive, that sometimes the scariest choice led to the most authentic life. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to find Victor in the doorway, watching her with that intensity that still made her breath catch. What are you thinking about? He asked. How a year ago I dressed like a disaster to fail a blind date and somehow ended up here. Regrets? Not a single one. Lena crossed the room to him, her hand finding his automatically. Though I do sometimes wonder what my life would have been like if you hadn't walked into that cafe. Safer, quieter, infinitely more boring. Exactly. She kissed him softly. I'll take dangerous and real over safe and numb any day. Victor pulled her closer, his arms wrapping around her with the careful strength she'd come to know so well. I love you. I don't think I've said that clearly enough. You haven't said it at all, actually. Lena's heart swelled. Then let me be clear. I love you, Lena Brooks. You walked into my life dressed in your worst clothes with every intention of leaving as quickly as possible, and somehow you became the thing I can't imagine living without. I love you too, even though you're a criminal with terrible judgment about which cafes to choose for blind dates. He laughed, and the sound of it still surprised her, this powerful, dangerous man finding genuine joy in her presence. Outside, the sun set over the estate, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Somewhere in the city, life continued in all its messy complexity. Kozlov ran his operations in accordance with their agreement. Jessica went on actual dates with men who had normal jobs. The world turned, and in a library filled with rare books in a mansion protected by armed guards, two people who should never have fit together held each other close and proved that sometimes the most impossible love stories were the ones worth fighting for. What do you want for dinner? Victor asked. Such a normal question in such an abnormal life. Lena smiled against his chest. Surprise me. Always. They walked together through the house they shared, past the security systems and the guards, and all the trappings of Victor's dangerous world, but none of it felt threatening anymore. It felt like home. Because home wasn't a place or a level of safety. Home was the person who saw you clearly and chose you anyway, who gave you freedom and hoped you'd choose to stay, who protected you without imprisoning you, Home was real and honest and sometimes terrifying, and Lena had finally found hers in the last place she'd ever expected to look, in the arms of a man who'd once been a stranger across a table in a rundown cafe, who'd become her protector and then her partner, and finally, simply, her love. The blind date had failed spectacularly, just as she'd intended, but everything that came after had succeeded beyond her wildest dreams. And that, Lena thought, as Victor's hand found hers and squeezed gently, was the best kind of unexpected ending, the kind that was really just a beginning.